Hello again. I'm going to start with what I guess I should have been doing all along, which is in every video to say like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. That's it's been brought to my attention that that's what people do on YouTube in their videos. They have to ask to like for you to like and subscribe. So uh, I'll just assume that you know how to do that. Um, few things before I get to the title topics. I think I've shown this book on the video before, but when I did, I don't think I had started it, and now I have read this much of it. Here's the bookmark here. That's page 1100. And so probably just a few more weeks on Les Mis. Um, and Goosebumps. Now that I have finally finished the Animorphs series and been a little bit disappointed by the Dinotopia series, I have started. I'm not going to go all the way like I did with Animorphs with these, but I wanted to see, do they hold up like Animorphs did? And here's the store up in Kingston where I got it, Half Moon Books, used bookstore. They have a shelf there called The Book Was Better. And but yeah, these are the ones that I got there. And I was going to start with this one because Slappy is the Goosebumps character, and but I didn't. When I did read it, I was surprised how little role he actually plays in the book. I started with this one because I had a fun little story about it, about when I had it, when I had my own copy, when I got it in second grade, and it was apparently such a big deal. It was the most recent Goosebumps book. My second grade teacher asked to borrow it to take to her third graders. I guess read it to them or show it to them for show and tell or something like that. And when it came back, the cover was all torn apart and then taped back together. And my teacher was very sorry that that had happened. And I like to think that however I responded to that, made her feel better because I don't recall caring that much, but I probably did care. And I'm looking forward to this one because I'm not sure if I've ever read it, but I like the episode of the television show, although I haven't watched it in a while. And when I watched this episode of the television show, I didn't like it very much, so who knows. This one, strangely, did not get an episode of the television show, even though Night of the Living Dummies 2 and 3 did. So that's that's the Goosebumps thing. Um, I want to suggest, I can't hold up anything, but I just want to suggest go over to Screen Junkies and Screen Junkies News, and they've got some great. I've just been watching their Twilight fandom documentary, which I think you can only access by watching the honest trailer for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, or just skipping to the end, and then it's a box within the window, which I don't know how to do, but they do it, and that's, I think, the only way that you can access it. It's listed as unlisted, not as part of one of their channels. And then on Screen Junkies News, there's this great little thing about how the movie Captain Marvel has been treated by various bloggers and things, and there's all sorts of myths about how it's not actually successful, and Disney's just making it successful by cheating, and how none of that's true. So watch those things. But first, the main reason for the video, the first thing I wanted to talk about is this. I may have shown this on screen when I first got it from a library sale. I'm not going to hold them up the whole time. I'll hold them the whole time, but I won't necessarily hold them up the whole time. But I got this a collection of reasons that all happened to come down right at the beginning of this year. I finished the Animorphs series, which I blamed Little Women semi-unfairly for 20 years for my never having finished it when it originally was coming out, because I was assigned to read Little Women in the middle of the summer between 6th and 7th grade, and that's when I stopped reading Animorphs because it took so long to read Little Women, and I was not a good reader back then. My parents read portions of it to me, and they didn't like it very much either, and they were adults. Also, I got this DVD from, I was helping a friend with the garage sale, and they were getting rid of this DVD, and I thought, oh, it's got Winona Ryder, and then I realized, oh, it also has Kirsten Dunst, and Claire Danes, and Susan Sarandon, and let's see, oh, and I didn't realize until I actually started watching it Um, but Christian Bale, Batman, plays the guy, Laurie Lawrence, referred to as Teddy mostly in the movie for some reason. Um, and so I wanted to watch this. Also, there's a new movie, going to be a new movie. Actually, this is one of those things that gets adapted way too much. I don't want to say too much, but a lot. Just a couple of years ago, there was a um, miniseries. I think it was a BBC miniseries with Maya Hawke, the daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman, as Jo, who is the Winona Ryder's role in this movie, and Saoirse Ronan in the upcoming movie, and Michael Gambon, I assume, is Mr. Lawrence, not Laurie Lawrence, but Laurie Lawrence's grandfather, and Angela Lansbury. I don't remember. I didn't look too closely at the cast list. Probably Aunt March or somebody else in that age range. I didn't look too closely at that cast, but it intrigued me because as I was reading the book, I thought this is not a 2-hour movie. Really, it's not even necessarily an overarching novel. It's more of a series of stories. But I'll get more to that when I talk about the book. But then later this year, Greta Gerwig's movie with Saoirse Ronan as Jo and Emma Watson as Meg, and Laura Dern as Marmee, Meryl Streep as Aunt March, Chris Cooper, I think, as Mr. Lawrence. Bob Odenkirk is in it. I'm assuming that he is going to play Mr. March. I couldn't quite find that, but I'm assuming that. And Timothée Chalamet, who I've never seen any of his movies, I don't think, is going to be Laurie. And so I don't know anything about him, but I do know Saoirse Ronan and Emma Watson will be amazing, and Laura Dern and Meryl Streep will be amazing. It looks like a great cast. Greta Gerwig, I've seen the movies that she's been in. I've seen the movies that she's directed. I'm not completely sold on her, but this looks like a great project, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to put this down and just hold this one, pass it between my arms, and give them each a rest. So those are all the reasons that I finally reread Little Women, gave it a real shot now that it's safe, now that I finished Animorphs, and I liked it. I didn't love it as much as I kind of hoped that I would after all these years. When the musical happened on Broadway, when I was just getting into Broadway, I rolled my eyes, but Sutton Foster was Jo March, and so that thought, oh well, that's a reason to be interested in it, and I've kind of appreciated the cast recording, but with cast recordings, sometimes if you don't know the story, then it's hard to appreciate the songs and know what they're referring to, where they go, and so I don't think I was ever able to fully appreciate it like Jane Eyre. When the Jane Eyre musical happened, I knew everything that every song referred to, and the songs made sense and they could live on their own. So I look forward to giving that musical cast recording another shot, and hopefully Monday seeing the musical. I do have a playbill because a cousin went to see it and got me a playbill, and I think it's signed by somebody, possibly Sutton Foster. So yeah, it didn't have the I liked it. I found that I liked it more than most of the Charles Dickens that I've read. In fact, probably all of the Charles Dickens that I've read. I didn't like it as much as the Wilkie Collins or the Charlotte Brontes or the Emily Bronte, any of the Brontes, Anne Bronte, any of the Brontes. Books from a comparable era, and not nearly as much as Frankenstein, but Frankenstein's way sooner comparatively. And by the way, I watched recently the movie where Dakota Fanning plays Mary Shelley. It was not a great movie. I thought it maybe focused less on the more interesting things and more on the less interesting things, but great performances, and I enjoyed it. So it feels like a series of events more than an overarching. There's an overarching. There are a couple of overarching things, but it it feels more like episodes of a TV show than a movie. Which is not to say that I'm prejudging Greta Gerwig's movie, or that I didn't like this movie. I liked it very much. But I think that it's more of a miniseries type thing than a movie. I don't intend to read the sequels unless I find them for 25 cents each, and it's been a while. It didn't inspire me to read the sequels. It's kind of what I liked about the Brontes books and the Wilkie Collins books, and other books from the era that this didn't have was that sense of building. It didn't seem to be building to anything, even though it really was, but it just didn't. I wasn't anticipating what it was building for. I didn't feel like I have to get to what it's building for. I more kind of appreciated the individual things, each little climax that happens along the way. And Joe March, great character, all great characters. I did care about the characters, even if I didn't find them as exciting as the characters in the books, Jane Eyre, The Woman in White, where I feel like it's building. There's a sense of I've got to get to the end, but I cared about them because you spent 450 pages with them, and that's something I'm finding in Les Mis and that I found in Oliver Twist, two books that I know the stories from movies and musicals, but the characters I feel like I'm really gotten to know from the novels, because it's just you spend more time with them, and you learn more about them. And so that was my experience of this, even though I didn't necessarily care where it was going by page 450. I did find the characters, I enjoyed spending time with the characters. I found Beth interesting. I didn't quite get what she was for. I cared about her, and you have to care about her to get the full impact of the book, but I didn't know if she was maybe, I didn't know what she represented. I guess the characters are based on Louisa May Alcott's family, but I didn't know if Beth represented some particular mental illness of the time, or maybe what we today would call chronic depression or anxiety. And now that I read it, I know what to look for. I need to learn more about Beth and why Beth was there and what she meant to Louisa May Alcott. So 20 years later, I no longer blame Little Women for interrupting my flow with Animorphs. And I'm glad that I reread it. And when I did the first video like this about all of the Animorphs books, friends said that I should do one when I read Little Women, because I'd mentioned Little Women. And so I thought, well, I'll do it when the Greta Gerwig movie comes out, and it's not coming out until Christmas, and I wanted to get this out of the way, because I was more and more looking forward to it as the reasons to read it built up. So, not sure whether or not I'll comment on the Greta Gerwig movie on YouTube or on my blog when I get to it, but maybe I will. I'm trying to think if there's anything more that I wanted to say about Little Women. Young writers should read it. Jo March's story, writing and publishing doesn't really work like that anymore, but it's interesting to see how it worked. And it was a way for me to identify with the character. I didn't think that this movie, Winona Ryder does a great job of showing how quirky and energetic and passionate Jo is, but Laurie in the book is supposed to be he's supposed to be her equivalent, and Christian Bale just wasn't. He wasn't as quirky, energetic, mischievous as Jo was. So I'm interested in seeing what Timothée Chalamet does with that. And Christian Bale is, of course, wonderful in other things. And it's just a beautiful movie, too. Beautiful period piece, beautiful costumes, environments. Snow was great. And it made me want to learn more about Louisa May Alcott. Not necessarily read the sequels to this book, but I got a book of Christmas stories by her. And, of course, the inclusion of the first few chapters of this book in my Christmas treasury was one of the things that got me thinking maybe I will enjoy Louisa May Alcott. So I think I'll put down Little Women for now. Both of these both of these things will be either sold later today or donated to a library book sale later today. All right. Next thing is political buttons. Now, a couple years ago, I started, well, really more. Ooh, that probably sounded on the video. I started getting interested. Well, I'd been interested in politics for a couple of years, but getting interested in advertising it. And the classic way to advertise for a political candidate is with buttons. And so I was just going to go with the Hillary buttons when she got in for 2016. And then I thought, well, there are so few Democrats, and Bernie, him running then was a special thing. He was an independent. He was running as a Democrat and advertising for democratic socialism and new ideas. And so I thought, oh, well, that's a special thing. So I got Bernie's button. There was only really one more. There were two others that I didn't end up getting, but I got Martin O'Malley's button. And as such, I have not and don't plan to, unless he gets the nomination, get a new Bernie Sanders button because I got the 2016 one. But it's a nice button. I got the white one. There was blue and white and red, but he's an independent. He's not a Democrat. And so I thought white is the color to get for Bernie. And I wear all of these buttons. I ended up getting Jeb and Rick Perry, and I think those are the only other buttons that I got at the time. And I wear all the buttons sometimes around New York, and I get interesting comments. And there's a lot more buttons this time, and I'm going to show them to you, at least the ones that I have, because Kirsten Gillibrand and Pete Buttigieg have not released buttons, or the Ohio congressman who announced on The View yesterday, Tim Ryan, I think is his name. He is not anything. And Joe Biden has not announced either. I will get his button when he does, because he'll probably have buttons right off the bat. But a lot of them don't. They don't do merchandise right away. Who's the other? Kamala Harris. I ordered the Kamala Harris button. She only recently released buttons. She had a great hat. But she only just released buttons, so I ordered them. They will be in the mail soon. And just yesterday, I got my Beto button. So I'm going to show you some of these buttons. I'll show you all the buttons and comment on them as I show them to you. The two that I consider the prettiest, again, and this has nothing to do with who I'm going to vote for because I haven't decided, and that's so nice because the last two times I've been Hillary all the way, and this time I genuinely don't know who I will end up voting for. I have shifting top five, but I don't know. I really don't know. I did go to Kirsten Gillibrand's launch 2 Sundays ago because none of the others are going to have their official launches in my neighborhood, so I figured I'll go to hers and learn about her and see her, and it was great. And I got a sticker and a sign, but no button. These are the two that I think are the prettiest because they have the kind of, I think that's supposed to be kind of a sunrise, and I think that's supposed to be sun shining. So they're kind of, they go together. Jay Inslee, is it Jay Inslee? Whatever, Inslee and Tulsi, they kind of go together, and they've got a nice, it's kind of like Obama's logo with a rising sun over, I guess, a field of grain or whatever that approximated the flag, and these are versions of that. Tulsi Gabbard is Hawaiian, and so I think that maybe has something to do with the rising sun, but it's a very, or a flower like a lei, from a lei. Inslee, his big thing is fighting climate change and climate stuff. So I suppose that's why the sun is involved in his, although it's a little weird to have something evoking the sun on your button when too much heat from the sun and too much radiation from the sun is your, or maybe it's not weird to have that is kind of a reminder right on his button. Anyway, I don't want to hold all the buttons up for that long. Next prettiest is Hickenlooper's because it's got the mountain range there. He's Colorado, former governor of Colorado, I think. You can tell by how much I know about a person that whether or not I'm likely to vote for that person. I'm not likely to vote for Hickenlooper. I think was the governor of Colorado, but for some reason I'm thinking Oregon. Inslee, I think, was governor of Washington. Maybe he still is. Yes, you can tell how into these people I am, and how likely I am to vote for them. But I like the star there. I'm trying to get it so that you can see it without the sun, the glare on it. I like the star there, I like the mountains. It's a nice picture. It's a nice button. I am clearly not likely to vote for him, but I appreciate the artistry of his button. Now, some of them, this one, oh, well, I'll get this out of the way first. This is kind of a medium-sized button. John Delaney was the first official candidate because he announced in 2017 and hasn't done much in the race that I can think of since then. And sometimes I think, oh, they're too small a deal candidate-wise to get the button, but part of the performative art aspect of this is I would support any of them against the current president, so I will, until one is picked either by me or the country, then I will wear as many. Maybe I'll take them off of my coat or my vest or whatever. I wear them on as they drop out, and they will, hopefully, before the debates start, so there aren't any people saying, well, I didn't get on the debate and it's not fair. He probably will be among the first to drop out. But I want to show support for the people who are working on, the goal that we want. And there are some people's buttons are just pretty much solid colors, and either their first or last names, like the first name of Julian Castro. He sent 2 buttons, dark blue background, his first name, and his website. A lot of them have their websites, and they've got this little symbol here. I guess they all have their buttons made, or most of them have their buttons made in the same place. Andrew Yang, again, last name, and the other button that he sent 2, and the other button that he sent has just the Y, but it's, I think, blue. It's a white background, blue Y, red kind of draped across it. And I like logos like that. They make for good lapel pins. I'm not going to buy any lapel pins unless I buy from the person who actually gets the nomination, because lapel pins are more expensive, way more expensive than these buttons. Amy Klobuchar, again, just her first name. I'm hoping that when Saturday Night Live does her, if they haven't already, then she's constantly being snowed on because her announcement was made in a snowstorm. And I like that. That's not why I like her, but, well, it's one of the reasons. But I like that she was there in the snowstorm. That's where she made her announcement. She didn't let the snow stop her. And that's a good mark. Her button also is the only one that is bright green. And so that makes it stand out among my buttons, most of which are blue, Democrats. The vast majority of them are blue. None of them are green. And Beto is black and white. And I think that Beto, not substantially, but stylistically, reminds me of Jonah Ryan from Veep. And he sent me 2 of these when I ordered them. He didn't just send them to me. If he gets the nomination, I will support him. In the meantime, he's not close to the top. But maybe he will be by the end. I don't know. There's a long time to go. Let's see. Cory Booker wins the prize for best value because he sent 3 giant buttons. And I'll tell you why that particularly made me happy with my next and last button. This is the least allowed of the buttons. His buttons are crazy. The other 2 are hanging on my button curtain in my bedroom. But this one stands out for size. And I like him. I was actually at the Gillibrand rally. I was standing next to a guy from New Jersey who also was not decided, but he told me that in New Jersey they do like Cory Booker, and I'm considering voting for Cory Booker. I like his demeanor, and I like his very, very large button. Best value of the sets of buttons. And this is my favorite button and one of my favorite candidates, but you can see This and two others just as small were the most expensive package of buttons that I ordered. More expensive than Cory Booker's 3 large buttons. And so that is why I particularly appreciate Cory Booker's buttons. Um, but this one is my favorite button because it's the most classic campaign buttons. Get the red, white, and blue, just the name in the middle. It's simple yet powerful. It's also the size of, like I've got a Bobby Kennedy campaign button and a Gene McCarthy campaign button from 1968. They're both about this size, and so maybe that's what she was going for, but still, especially for someone who economic inequality and responsible use of money is her thing, it seems like maybe the buttons should have been at least average size buttons. But this is my favorite design of button, and she's one of my favorite candidates. So that is for the buttons. I had intended to have the Kennedy and McCarthy buttons here, but unlike Elizabeth Warren, I'm not going to, in the middle of the video, step off the screen just to get a prop. So that's that for campaign buttons. And Kamala Harris, you should look up Kamala Harris's, her logo is black background, and then the KA of her name in one color, the MA of her name in another color, and then the LA of her name in a third color. I forget exactly what the colors are, but they're kind of pastel colors. They look very nice against the black background. I really loved her hat, and I'm glad that the buttons look like her hat. And kind of hope that she gets the nomination so I can justify buying her hat. But like I said, I get the buttons because they're nice and cheap. So the last thing on the list is bookmarks. And I have a collection of bookmarks, and I was going to write about them, but I figure, and I can take pictures and put them with the blog post if I write about them, but it's much more fun to just to show them. And so that's what I'm going to do here. And here, this is kind of what the Kennedy button looks like. This is from the show that I worked on last December, November, and October about Bobby Kennedy. And I ended up, I had taped to the front of my binder that had my script in it, and then they gave me a nicer little cover page, so I took the tape and I taped it so that I didn't want to pull it off because then I tear the thing, and I used it as the bookmark for whatever book I was reading backstage during the show, because I had nothing to do backstage during the show unless something went wrong, and nothing ever went wrong. So, at least backstage. So that's the first one. But I'll start with the larger ones. This one is just somebody brought this from an academic conference and gave it to me, I think because of it's a fossil. It's a picture of a nice fossil. It's got an A. My name begins with an A. So it's nice, and I use it for larger books. The size of the bookmark equates to the size of the book that I use it for, and particularly books that have to do with science. For instance, later this year when I read A Brief History of Time, I will use this as the bookmark. This came from a Japanese culture festival in Central Park that I went to, and I don't know if it was intended to be a bookmark. It's just a nice, the symbol it says here means cherry tree. It's not like I got the tattoo and they told me it meant one thing and it means another thing. I'm assuming that since they wrote cherry tree down there, that's what I got. It's a very nice, what's the word? Not symbol, not hieroglyph. Maybe hieroglyph is the word. I think letter isn't the accurate term for it, but whatever. It's from the Japanese alphabet, and I use it for very big books because it's a very big bookmark, like the other one. The Cuckoo Clock of Doom here. This is a bookmark from that store where I got it in Kingston, Half Moon Books, and I like to get bookmarks, free bookmarks from bookstores because I like to advertise for the used bookstores where I got the books when I get books. And there are a lot of great bookstores up in the Hudson Valley. This was sent to me on my 30th birthday as obviously Hamilton. Person knows I'm into musicals. Musicals are my reason for being. And then on the back, I'm not throwing away my shot from the lyrics of the song in Hamilton. Homemade. This is possibly my only homemade bookmark, gifted to me by somebody who homemade the bookmark. I got it in the mail, and I was very surprised. Considering my birthday is not on Facebook, a lot of people happened to know that I was turning 30. Another is from a bookshop, used bookstore that I don't think it's still around. I think the guy moved to North or South Carolina, but Brown Bag Bookshop was where I got a lot of used books in Rochester. It was close to Rick's, which is still going, and I got most of my Animorphs books there, but I don't have a bookmark from there. I don't know if they has bookmarks there. Used and rare books, bought and sold, and I don't have. Do I have? I don't know if I have the bookmark. I should. Maybe I left it in the book. I got a Wilkie Collins book that I hadn't heard of. I got it at a used bookstore called Ann's in Manistee, Michigan, and I think the bookmark from that is still in there. But I want to mention Ann's, the used bookstore in Manistee, Michigan, because like I said, I like to talk about the used bookstores. These are bookmarks mostly that I got. Well, here's one from the Strand, which is a semi-used bookstore. And then just a whole bunch of, this one is a religious bookmark. But most of these are from the Brooklyn Book Festival, where I take the bookmarks to remind me of the books that I'm not going to buy at the time because I don't have the money to buy them at the time, but they interest me and I want to remember them. And I don't use these, but I've been meaning for a long time to go through my complete volumes of Shakespeare and use these to bookmark the monologues that I want to remember and the poems. And I still haven't done that, but so it's good to have a lot of bookmarks if you want to give them permanent homes. And some of my bookmarks do get permanent homes, or at least long-term homes. You'll meet one of those. This I used to mark one of my Dinotopia books, Lost City, which is the first one that I tried to read. It is a collection of twist ties, but it's the shape of a bookmark, and it fit well in the Dinotopia book. And that means that this, like my grudge against Little Women, is also at least 20 years old. And when I went to reread it, I took them out, and I intend to use it as a bookmark. This bookmark I got, it was in my used copy of Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and it's very nice. It's a nice shape. It's got an interesting thing here. I like this bookmark because, let's see, Little Women here, I'll demonstrate Little Women. Sometimes, especially with a book like Little Women, I don't remember if I'm on page 216 or 217. And so with this bookmark, a lot of the bookmarks, like, they have front and back. This one looks the same front and back, but if I put it in like this, I have the arrow pointing to 217 if I'm on 217. I put it in like this, and the arrow is pointing at 216 if I'm on 216. So I like this bookmark for that reason, even though it is nondescript. This, I don't know where I think it came out of a book that I don't remember which book, but it came out of a book that I was reading, and it's got the word library in all of these languages, including Braille. And we also have somewhere around here a sheet that has the Braille alphabet, and I've started learning sign language, and I'd like to learn Braille as well. Not in a just-in-case way, but in a may as well, so that I can better communicate with other people way. And so that's an exciting one. This was, it's got an I voted today sticker. This was part of you know how you get a blanket and it's wrapped around something more solid, typically made of cardboard, to give it a more firm shape when it's new. This is part of that. I happened to be reading the 50 Shades of Grey books at the time, and this looked like the perfect bookmark to go with those books. It's also very nice. I kept it around. Nice solid cardboard bookmark. And before I go into those, The bookmark currently in Les Mis is one of my favorites. It's a playing card, but it's a specially constructed playing card to serve as a ticket for a production of Wojciech, I think is how it's pronounced. And I remember the visuals of that production very well, but I could not tell you what it's about. But I showed the person who directed it, came to a Halloween party, and I showed her that I was using this bookmark because it's a nice thing. And I tend to leave tickets that are actual tickets in the playbills or programs, but this, I wanted to look at it. It's a nice looking thing as well. And then this is the bookmark that I used for Little Women, and I've now got it right at the beginning of Uncle Tom's Cabin, is a wizard card for Godric Gryffindor. Not an official product from the Harry Potter things. This is homemade, very nice. It came with a homemade chocolate frog, and it's got the front and the back, and I use it. But fits a little awkwardly in the books because of its weird shape, but I like it. I appreciate it. And so those are the two that are currently being used. This is there's a guy who types poetry on the Upper East Side near the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it says free. People typically tip him, and I think that it would not be okay if I didn't. Maybe I'll read the poem. He typed it out, and then he interviewed me, and he typed out a poem, and then he made changes, and then he deckled the edges, and I think it was worth paying for, and it makes a note for a nice bookmark. I don't know which side is the start of the poem, so I'll just read from this side. A fence that guides like avenue trees, at evening's yawn, leading to thy mushy decline, to the vibrations of glacial falls that settles by the end of the humble stream that neighbors the rocky portion of the ravine. The faintest muse from a helicopter curves and notions toward the northern Hudson or the southern Giant, to where a blue bear who appears to fly from unclosed eyes to park its rear, and soliloquy to the gathering of strange sways, unpaved walkway of soil and shy quartz by the downturn of an arbor, where a random date and time for an occasion is embedded on a sign attached to a low lacing. Now, I don't read a lot of poetry, and I don't understand a lot of poetry, but it's a neat, very New York souvenir, and so I have it around to use for books. Maybe one day it'll have a permanent home in a poetry book. And this is my lead bookmark. It's my main bookmark. I think my mom made it for me around college or late high school. It's a cross stitch, an owl, a heart, a rabbit. It's probably an Easter present. And it doesn't go out much because it's the one that I really, really don't want to lose. So for a while it lived in the Shakespeare, and for a while it lived in the Christopher Hitchens collection of essays called Arguably, and it's the first. I think it is of this collection. It is the first bookmark that I thought that I kept, that became a regular reused bookmark, and gave me the idea to actually reuse bookmarks as opposed to pulling a piece of tissue out of the tissue box and using that, and then for a bookmark, and then when the book is done, using it for my notes. So this started the bookmark collection. It is the lead bookmark, the most important bookmark, and yeah. So that's my bookmarks, my buttons, Little Women, and a couple of videos from Screen Junkies that I recommend, and my progress on Les Mis. I'll probably, Uncle Tom's Cabin is my next, just like it was the summer after Little Women I was assigned to read this. Les Mis, probably another 100 pages, read 20 at a time. I will hopefully after I finish Uncle Tom's Cabin, I'll just go straight to the end, however much I have left. Hopefully no more than 400 pages left in Les Mis, and I've already got Don Quixote waiting there to be my next slow read. I will probably, as I did with Les Mis, start with 5 pages a night, then 10, then 15, and ultimately 20. It is not quite as long as Les Mis, but the reason I started reading more and more pages per night of Les Mis is I found that they went very quickly, and hopefully Don Quixote will as well. Let's see if I can reach the... I've seen this a couple of times. I've been very fortunate to see it a couple of times. King Lear's my favorite Shakespeare play. Glenda Jackson, amazing and important actress. If you get the chance, and I realize that, and this is why I wasn't necessarily going to talk about it, because Broadway shows are not as accessible as used books and used movies, but if you get a chance, go see any Shakespeare anywhere. Wherever you are, there's probably Shakespeare near you, and if you get to see Glenda Jackson and King Lear, it's quite an amazing experience. So I'll call that for the day and take these and other books and DVDs to the used bookstore, try to sell them, and take whatever's left to the library. And if you are in the Upper West Side of New York tomorrow, there's a library sale at the library at I think it's the St. Agnes branch on Amsterdam Avenue. And if you really want these, they'll be for sale there probably. But also I just advocate people using library sales for their book and DVD needs because you get more for less money. So that's that. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. And ram the blade ship.